Hey guys, it's Scott from the Forgot to Grow podcast. Welcome to another edition of ReWatching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Today I'm going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 10, The Bridge. Alright guys, so as you guys know, if you've seen this video series before, or if you're new, you know I'm just going to give you the IMDb plot summary so we have a general idea of what happened in this episode, and I'm just going to be talking about my thoughts, some pieces of foreshadowing I picked up on, and little Easter eggs, stuff like that. But let's just get started, guys, with the IMDb plot summary for Episode 10 of Season 1, The Bridge. So that says, in the wake of the resurfacing of Centipede, S.H.I.E.L.D. recruits Mike Peterson after their last not-so-warm encounter in order to balance the scales against Centipede's super soldiers. At this end, Centipede is looking for technology which would allow them to stabilize the serum fully. Amidst all this is the myth of a clairvoyant, and S.H.I.E.L.D. has never been at such a downside of advantage at discerning the true intentions of their enemies. So that was the IMDb plot summary, which just didn't really tell you a whole lot. What happens in this episode, guys, is that Mike Peterson comes back to help out the team, but then his son ends up getting kidnapped by Raina and Centipede, and Edison Poe, who at the beginning of the episode was broken out by Centipede. He was the guy that was in prison. I had to look up his name. I couldn't remember what it was. But he's the connection to the clairvoyant we see throughout this episode. That's one thing we learn throughout this episode, is that he's, well, we already kind of knew that, but we learn a lot more, like how he's kind of the only one who gets to talk to and communicate with the clairvoyant. Otherwise, you end up something with your eyes, he says. He said some line to Raina about her knife and eyes. It was weird. I don't like that guy. Anyway, some other things that happen is Mike, while trying to help out the team, his son ends up getting kidnapped by Centipede, and that's what kind of leads into a lot of the conflict and resolution at the end of this episode, which is Mike says that Centipede just wants him, and so they're going to trade Mike for Mike's son. But once they get there, it turns out that Centipede wanted Agent Coulson all along in exchange for Mike's son, and Mike had just gone along with it, saying it was him that they wanted in order to get Agent Coulson there, which I thought was a really interesting way to go about that. When I first saw this episode, I remember it being like, oh, that's a twist. Why do they want him? They said, but that's interesting. And in hindsight, having this being a rewatch and having seen this a little bit before, we know that they take him to learn more about his resurrection and his time at Tahiti, etc., which we learn, I believe, in the next episode, which I'm really excited to get to. That was another thing we got in this episode, was Mike Peterson trying to be a hero. We also see an explosion at the end of this episode where we're kind of like, oh, did he die? Did we not? What happened to him? And obviously, for those of us who've seen this, no, he doesn't die. He just ends up being taken. I can't remember what happens after this. I'll have to look into that. But what else did we get? We got a little bit of kind of foreshadowing, see, with May having to take over leading the team now that Coulson kind of was kidnapped in this episode. Just before he goes off for the exchange, he says to her, you know, I need you to stay here in case it goes wrong. I need you to be able to take over and lead the team, which I thought was really interesting, because you can see in the first few seasons that May is obviously the second in command and the one that would obviously take over if he ever, died or wasn't around. But as the seasons progress, it slowly transitions from May into Sky, and that I think is really cool, development that in hindsight is really interesting to think about when you see that. At first, he doesn't even think, at this point in the show, we're still, he still doesn't 100% trust Sky. He's still lying to her about her parents and her past, and so it's really interesting to see it's really interesting to think about. That the development that arc has between those characters. What else did we get? I have a line written down. We want you to tell us about the day after you die. Oh, yeah, so that's what Raina says to Coulson at the very end of the episode, obviously alluding to us learning about the Tahiti. I already kind of mentioned that. But that's pretty much all I noticed. This had a lot of connections into the show, but it's also kind of just like the starter. This is a two-part episode arc in a sense that we kind of at first we're kind of shown this part of it. We're like, oh, we think it's about Centipede and Mike, but it ends up being about Centipede and Coulson, and next episode we get to learn more about that. So there'll be more kind of resolution and more concrete connections in the next episode and the next video that I make about that. But guys, what did you guys notice that I missed? Let me know in the comments below of any kind of foreshadowing that you liked in particular in this episode, or that I didn't 100% pick up on. Definitely let me know in the comments below. Thanks for joining me again today, guys. Be sure to check out the other videos and the rest of the channel and subscribe. And thanks again for joining me today for